and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today I'll be filming my top 10 college football transfers, part 2 video for 2026. So starting with number 6, I've got Perich, a safety transferring from Minnesota to Oregon. So Perich was a freshman All-American in 2024, and that year he only started 3 games but played in all 13 games and led the Big Ten in interceptions with 5, and that ranked 2nd nationally. And then he didn't allow a touchdown in coverage in either one of his 2 years at Minnesota, and he has great size at 6'1", and he's very physical, which you would expect coming from Minnesota. Because while Minnesota is not usually a great team and they don't have the most talented players, they're not afraid to make hard hits over there. And in 2025, as a full-time starter, he only had 1 interception, but it was a pick 6, and none of his interceptions the year before were a pick 6.
Brown on first down, it's intercepted. Perich, it's a home.
But he also had in those 2 years 4 pass breakups and 2 forced fumbles. And he's a great tackler. In 2025, he had 82 tackles, and that's a lot of tackles even for a linebacker. And he was a 4-star recruit, the number 5 safety recruit in the country. And Oregon is bringing him in to replace Dylan Thieneman, the elite safety that they brought in last year from Purdue, who's going to the NFL. But I don't think there'll be any drop off at that safety spot with Perich coming in, and he can be a big help to Oregon on special teams too. He was Minnesota's main kick and punt returner those 2 years and was a great one. And he has elite speed. He ran the 100-meter dash in 10.89 seconds in high school. And then number 7, I've got Snowden, a cornerback transferring from Utah to Michigan. So Snowden is leaving because he wants to follow Kyle Whittingham, but he was a 4-star recruit, and he was at Utah for 3 years. And his first year he barely played, but the past 2 years he's been a starter, and both of those years he's been Utah's best corner and one of the Big 12's best corners. In 24 games, he has 85 tackles and 17 pass breakups and 4 interceptions. And he has all the speed that you could ask for. He ran the 100-meter dash in 10.57 seconds in high school, so he can keep up with the fastest wide receivers. Now, he is a little undersized, but he is very physical, even though he's only 5'10". But he only allowed a 41.5% completion in coverage these past 2 years. 8 is a Princewill Umanmielen, a defensive lineman transferring from Ole Miss to LSU. So he was only at Ole Miss 1 year, but it was a great one. He's a solid tackler. He had 45 tackles, and pass rushing is his best, though. But he had 9 sacks, which was tied for the 3rd most in the SEC, and he had 54 total quarterback pressures, and also had an interception and a pass breakup. Now, he did have some inconsistency at stopping the run, and he's not the most physical lineman because he's a little undersized at 245 pounds. But it was in the second half of last season that he became one of college football's best pass rushers. In the first half of the season, he was actually a disappointment because he was a very highly rated portal player last year. But he was a four-star recruit, and he's going to LSU because he wants to follow Lane Kiffin. But he started his college career at Nebraska, where in 2023 he was a freshman All-American. He only started one game that year, but played in 11 games and had 22 tackles and a sack and 22 total quarterback pressures. But in 2024, his number of snaps went way down compared to 2023 from 250 to just 102, which caused his production to go down. He didn't start any games that year, but did play in 12 games and had 13 tackles and half a sack and 12 total quarterback pressures. 9 is Cam Coleman, a wide receiver transferring from Auburn to Texas. So Coleman was the number 5 recruit nationally and the number 2 wide receiver recruit in 2024. And in 23 games, he's in 2 years at Auburn, he started all of them and had a total of 93 catches for 1,306 yards and 13 touchdowns, averaging 14 yards per catch. And his yard total in 2024 was the third most in school history for an Auburn wide receiver as a freshman. And the problem for Coleman, though, has been he's never had a very good quarterback throwing to him. And now Arch Manning in the first half of last season wasn't any better than the Auburn quarterbacks, but with the way Manning played in the second half of last season, you would expect Coleman to have a much better quarterback throwing to him than he had either year that he was at Auburn, especially compared to last year because Jackson Arnold turned out to be even worse than Peyton Thorne was. But I think in 2026 that Coleman is going to be an 1,000-yard wide receiver, and he has elite speed. He ran the 40-yard dash in only 4.4 seconds, and he has great size at 6'3", and he's great at making one-handed grabs.
What a game for Daniels. 307 yards passing. Once more. In the corner of the end zone, did Coleman.
And he's one of the best in the country at catching deep balls. He caught 9 of 11 passes from 20 plus yards away from the line of scrimmage while in tight coverage in 2025. And this is a big pickup for Texas, not because they didn't already have talent at wide receiver, but because they're already getting back their star wide receiver Ryan Wingo, who was almost as highly of a recruited player as Cam Coleman was, and he's expected to be a first round pick in the 2027 NFL draft. So you put Coleman and Wingo together, that might be the best combination of 2 wide receivers in college football next season. Hollywood Smothers, a running back transferring from NC State to Texas. So Smothers was not a highly recruited player coming out of high school, only a 3-star recruit. And he started his college career at Oklahoma, where he barely played, only appeared in 4 games, and then redshirted. And then at NC State in 2024. He played in 11 games and started 6 games and had 571 yards and 6 touchdowns on only 89 carries. averaging 6.4 yards per carry, and that was the sixth highest average in NC State school history. And then in 2025, he was the full-time starter and played in 11 games and had 939 yards and six touchdowns on 160 carries and averaged 5.9 yards per carry and had 4 games of 100 plus yards rushing. And with Texas losing their top two running backs, Smothers is almost sure to be their starter in 2026. And his 85.4 rushing yards per game average in 2025 was the highest in the ACC. And in 2025, he had 9 runs of 20 plus yards. Now, he's not the fastest running back, but he's really good at dealing with contact. In 2025, 614 of those yards came after contact, and he forced 48 missed tackles. And he should have a better offensive line at Texas than he had at NC State. I think Smothers will be a 1,000 yard rusher in 2026. And he's also a threat as a pass catcher, but he has had some trouble with injuries. But that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.